Dr. Kane Miller stared at the holographic display floating above his desk, watching tiny figures move across the surface of the third planet in the Sol system. The beings called themselves humans, and they were the most complex, simulated life forms he had ever studied. For 300 years, the Galactic Collective had been observing this remarkable digital creation, taking notes on every aspect of their artificial civilization. The research vessel Prometheus drifted silently through space 12 light-years away from the Sol system. Its massive hull contained the most advanced observation equipment in the galaxy, all focused on studying what everyone believed was the greatest simulation ever created. The humans below seemed so real, so alive, that even the most experienced scientists sometimes forgot they were watching computer programs. Captain Lisa Torres walked through the observation deck, her boots clicking against the metal floor. She had been commanding this mission for 15 years, watching the simulated humans fight wars, build cities, and live their artificial lives. The detail was incredible. Every human had a unique personality, individual memories, and complex relationships with others. Whoever created this simulation had been a master of their craft. "Captain, you need to see this," Lieutenant Ben Adams called from his station. His voice carried an edge of confusion that made Torres walk faster. Adams had been monitoring the energy patterns from Earth for the past 5 years, and he knew the simulation's normal signatures better than anyone. Torres approached his workstation, where multiple screens showed waves of data flowing like digital rivers. "What am I looking at, Lieutenant?" "The quantum readings from the planet's surface," Adams said, pointing to a series of jagged lines on his main display. "They're not matching our simulation protocols anymore. Look at these neural activity patterns." Miller joined them, his scientific curiosity overriding his usual protocol. As the mission's lead xenobiologist, he had studied thousands of simulated species across the galaxy. He knew what artificial consciousness looked like, and he knew what real consciousness looked like. The readings on Adam's screen made his stomach turn cold. "That's impossible," Miller whispered, leaning closer to the display. "Those are genuine quantum neural networks, not simulated ones." The three officers stood in silence, watching the data streams that had suddenly become terrifying. For 3 centuries, the collective had been certain that Earth was an elaborate digital construct. The energy signatures perfectly matched their most sophisticated simulation algorithms. The behavioral patterns of the humans seemed too complex and random to be real, but too detailed to be simple programming. Torres felt her hands shaking. "Run the analysis again. Check for equipment malfunction." Adam's fingers flew over his controls, running diagnostic after diagnostic. Each test came back the same. The quantum resonance scanners were working perfectly, and they were detecting something that should have been impossible. The humans weren't responding to simulation protocols because they weren't simulated. "Captain," Miller said slowly, "I think we need to contact the High Command. These readings suggest that every human brain contains authentic quantum consciousness. Real neural activity, real emotions, real thoughts." The implications hit Torres like a physical blow. She thought about all the time she had watched human conflicts, taking notes on what she thought were fascinating behavioral algorithms. She remembered laughing at their primitive attempts at space travel, analyzing their art as examples of creative programming, and documenting their deaths as interesting data points. "How long have we been watching real people?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Miller was already running calculations on his portable scanner. "If these readings are accurate, then they've been real the entire time." 300 years of observation. 300 years of watching genuine suffering and calling it entertainment. The observation deck fell silent except for the hum of machinery. Around them, dozens of other scientists continued their work, still believing they were studying an artificial world. Torres realized she would have to tell them the truth. She would have to explain that every human death they had cataloged was real. Every war they had analyzed was genuine. Every moment of joy and sorrow they had documented was authentic. "Sir," Adam said, his voice shaking, "there's something else. The humans appear to be responding to our observation. Their quantum consciousness. Seems to be detecting our presence somehow. Torres looked at the data Adams was highlighting. Deep in the quantum readings, there were patterns that suggested the humans were unconsciously aware of being watched. Their technology was developing faster than it should. Their global conflicts were resolving in ways that didn't match historical patterns. It was as if they were performing for an audience they couldn't see. "They know we're here," Miller said, staring at the readings. "Not consciously, but on some level they're aware of our presence." Torres made a decision that would change everything. Lock down this information. No one else gets access to these readings until we figure out what to do. Adams, send an encrypted message to Admiral Voss. Tell him we have a situation that requires immediate attention. As Adams worked on the message, Torres walked to the main observation window. Far below, invisible to the naked eye, Earth continued its rotation. Millions of humans were living their lives, unaware that aliens had been watching them for centuries. They were going to work, raising families, creating art, and dreaming of the future. All of it was real. All of it mattered. Miller joined her at the window. "What do we do now, Captain?" Torres watched the tiny blue dot that contained billions of genuine lives. "We figure out how to apologize to an entire species for treating them like a computer program. And we pray they can forgive us." The discovery that Earth was real would change everything. The collective would have to confront the fact that they had been passive observers of genuine suffering for 3 centuries. They would have to decide whether to make contact to reveal their presence or to continue hiding in shame. But first, they had to accept the truth. The humans were real. They had always been real. And the collective had been watching them die. Admiral Rex Voss stared at the encrypted message on his personal display, reading it for the 4th time. The words remained the same, but his mind refused to accept them. 300 years of research could not be wrong. The best scientists in the collective had confirmed Earth's artificial nature using every available method. The humans showed behavioral patterns that were impossibly complex for real beings, yet too detailed for simple programming. The command center of the collective's main research station buzzed with activity. Hundreds of scientists worked at their stations, analyzing dozens of different worlds across the galaxy. Most were studying genuine alien civilizations, but the Sol system had always been special. It was their masterpiece observation, the most sophisticated simulation anyone had ever discovered. Dr. Miller's second report arrived an hour later, containing detailed quantum readings that made Voss's stomach turn. The new scanning technology showed clear differences between artificial and genuine consciousness. Every human brain contained authentic quantum neural networks, not the simulated patterns they had been expecting. The readings were undeniable, but accepting them meant accepting 3 centuries of terrible mistakes. Captain Torres arrived on the station 2 days later, her face grim with exhaustion. She had spent the journey reviewing every piece of data her team had collected, trying to find some explanation that would make the humans artificial again. She found none. "Admiral," she said, standing at attention in his private office, "we need to discuss the implications of this discovery." Voss gestured for her to sit. "Tell me how we got this wrong, Captain. How did our best scientists mistake real consciousness for artificial programming?" Torres activated a holographic display showing the quantum readings. "The energy signatures are incredibly complex, sir. They match our simulation protocols almost perfectly, but there are subtle differences that our old scanners couldn't detect. The humans appear to be unconsciously responding to our observation, which created feedback loops that looked like programming." "Responding to our observation?" Voss leaned forward. "Explain that." "Their quantum consciousness seems to be detecting our presence somehow," Torres said, highlighting specific data points. "Their technology has been developing faster than it should, based on their historical patterns. Their global conflicts have been resolving in ways that don't match previous civilizations. It's as if they're performing for an audience they can't. See, the implications were staggering. If the humans were unconsciously aware of being observed, then the collective's presence had been influencing their development for 3 centuries. Every major decision, every breakthrough, every cultural shift had been affected by alien watchers, who thought they were studying a computer program. Ambassador Nora Chun arrived the next morning, summoned from her diplomatic mission to the Andromeda sector. She had been the collective's chief diplomat for over a century, but she had never faced a crisis like this. How do you apologize to a species you've been studying like laboratory animals? How do you explain that their most traumatic historical events were observed by aliens who thought they were watching entertainment? The High Council is demanding answers, Chun said, joining Voss and Torres in the briefing room. Half of them want to maintain the observation and pretend nothing has changed. The other half wants to make immediate contact and offer assistance. Both options are disasters. Miller entered the room carrying a datapad full of his latest findings. Admiral, we have a bigger problem. The humans haven't just been responding to our observation, they've been unconsciously adapting to it. Their entire civilization has been shaped by our presence. He activated a new display showing historical data. Look at these patterns. Every time our observation teams became emotionally invested in human events, those events resolved more quickly. Wars ended sooner when our scientists grew disturbed by the violence. Scientific breakthroughs accelerated when we hoped for human advancement. We haven't just been watching them. We've been unconsciously guiding them. The room fell silent. The revelation that their observation had influenced human development made everything worse. The collective hadn't just been passive voyeurs. They had been unconscious puppet masters, pulling strings they didn't know existed. There's more, Miller continued. I've been analyzing the quantum entanglement patterns between our observation stations and Earth, the humans. Consciousness appears to be linked to ours at a subatomic level. They've been feeling our emotions, our hopes, our fears. They've been carrying the weight of our reactions to their lives. Torres felt sick. We've been making them suffer our judgments. Every time we analyzed their failures, they felt it. Every time we celebrated their successes, they experienced our joy. June stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the stars. We need to make contact. We can't continue this charade now that we know the truth. But how do we explain 3 centuries of voyeurism? How do we tell them that their most private moments were observed by strangers who thought they were watching a television show? We don't have a choice, Voss said finally. The ethical implications are clear. We have to reveal our presence and offer what help we can. But we also have to prepare for the possibility that they'll reject us completely. Miller looked up from his datapad. Admiral, there's something else. The humans have been developing theories about observer consciousness that come remarkably close to describing our influence. There's a physicist named Dr. Alex Rivera who has been working on equations that perfectly predict the quantum effects we've been creating. They know we're here, Torres said. Not consciously, but part of them knows. June turned from the window. Then we make contact with this Dr. Rivera. If anyone can understand what we've done, it would be someone who's already theorizing about it. Voss made the decision that would change both civilizations forever. Prepare a first contact team. Small group, minimal technology, complete transparency. We're going to tell them everything and hope they can forgive us. As the team prepared for the most important mission in collective history, none of them realized that the humans had been waiting for this moment for generations. Deep in their unconscious minds, they had always known they were being watched. And they had been hoping their observers would finally find the courage to say hello. The High Council chamber had never been so divided. Elder Myra Stone stood at the center of the circular room, her ancient voice carrying across the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds. The debate had been raging for 3 days, with no clear resolution in sight. We cannot reveal our presence, declared Counselor Thane from the Rigel system. The shock of learning they have been observed for 3 centuries will destroy their civilization. The psychological trauma alone could set them back millennia. We cannot continue the deception, countered Counselor Vale from the Vega colonies. Now that we know they are real, every moment of continued observation without their consent is a violation of their fundamental rights. Elder Stone raised her hand for silence. The debate had covered every possible angle, but the core problem remained unchanged. The collective had spent 300 years watching what they believed was a simulation, only to discover they had been observing real people living real lives. The ethical implications were staggering. "Dr. Miller," Stone said, "present your latest findings to the Council." Miller stepped forward, his research data prepared for the most important presentation of his career. "Honored counselors, the quantum entanglement between our observation stations and Earth has created an unprecedented situation. The humans are not just real. They are unconsciously aware of our presence and have been adapting to it for generations." He activated a holographic display showing the quantum feedback patterns. "Their consciousness has been linked to ours at a subatomic level. They have been feeling our emotions, our reactions, our hopes and fears. More importantly, they have been unconsciously performing for us, developing their civilization in ways that respond to our observation." The revelation caused murmurs throughout the chamber. The idea that alien consciousness could be linked across interstellar distances challenged everything they thought they knew about the nature of awareness itself. "There is more," Miller continued. "Dr. Alex Rivera, a theoretical physicist at their International Space Research Institute, has been developing equations that perfectly describe the quantum effects we have been creating. His work suggests that humans are subconsciously aware of being observed by a higher intelligence." Elder Stone leaned forward. "Are you suggesting they know we exist?" "Not consciously," Miller replied. "But their collective unconscious has been aware of our presence for generations. They have been waiting for us to make contact, even though they don't consciously understand what they are waiting for." Captain Torres stepped forward. "Elder Stone, I request permission to lead a first contact mission. We have identified Dr. Rivera as the most suitable initial contact. His work indicates he may be mentally prepared for the revelation of our existence." The chamber erupted in debate again. Some counselors argued for immediate contact, while others insisted on maintaining the observation, but Stone had made her decision. "Permission granted, Captain Torres? You will lead a small team to establish contact with this Dr. Rivera. Full transparency is required. We will tell them everything and accept whatever consequences follow." Torres selected her team carefully. Dr. Miller would provide scientific expertise and knowledge of human behavior. Lieutenant Adams would handle technical communications. Ambassador Chun would manage diplomatic protocols. It was a small group, but they carried the weight of 3 centuries of mistakes. The journey to Earth took 6 days using the collective's fastest ships. As they approached the Sol system, Torres felt the magnitude of what they were about to do. First contact with a species that had been unknowingly observed for 300 years. The humans deserved the truth. But the truth might destroy them. Dr. Rivera was working late in his laboratory when the first transmission arrived. The message was simple, a mathematical sequence that proved artificial intelligence, followed by star charts showing the location of the approaching ship. It was exactly what he had predicted in his theoretical papers about observer consciousness. His response came within hours, transmitted on the same frequency. The mathematical proof of Earth's technological capability was followed by a message that stunned the contact team. "We know you have been watching. We have been waiting for you to realize we are real." Torres stared at the message in disbelief. "They know. They actually know." Miller was reviewing the quantum readings from Earth. "Captain, the entire planet is responding to our approach. Human consciousness is becoming more active, more aware. It's as if they are waking up from a dream." The second transmission from Dr. Rivera arrived the next day, containing detailed calculations about quantum consciousness and observer effects. His equations described exactly what the collective had been doing for 3 centuries, as if he had been watching them watch his people. "How is this possible?" Adams asked, staring at the humans' mathematical proofs. "He's describing our observation methods with perfect accuracy." Shun had been analyzing the communication patterns. "It's the quantum entanglement. The humans haven't just been feeling our presence. They've been unconsciously learning from it. Dr. Rivera's work is the result of 3 centuries of subconscious contact with our science. Torres made the decision to reveal everything. The next transmission contained the complete history of the collective's observation of Earth, 300 years of data, analysis, and what they now realized were terrible mistakes. They included recordings of their debates, their scientific conclusions, and their growing horror at discovering the truth. Dr. Rivera's response came faster than expected. We forgive you. We understand. You helped us become more than we could have been alone. The words hit Torres like a physical blow. Forgiveness when they expected rage. Understanding when they deserved condemnation. The humans were showing them grace that they had never shown themselves. Captain, Miller said, studying. The latest readings from Earth. Something incredible is happening. The quantum link between us is stabilizing. It's as if the act of open communication is healing the damage we caused. Torres looked at the small blue planet that had changed everything. Request permission to establish orbit. We have 3 centuries of conversations to catch up on. The first contact that everyone had feared would destroy human civilization was instead healing both species. The truth had set them free. The first face-to-face meeting between humans and the collective took place in a conference room at the International Space Research Institute. Dr. Alex Rivera sat across from Captain Torres, both species finally seeing each other without the barrier of 3 centuries of hidden observation. The weight of the moment was almost unbearable. We have so much to discuss, Rivera said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the situation, and so much to forgive. Torres felt her hands shaking. Dr. Rivera, I want you to understand the full scope of what we did. We didn't just observe your people. We cataloged every major event in your history, analyzed your cultural development, and documented your most private moments. We treated your species like a fascinating experiment. Rivera nodded slowly. We know, we've always known on some level. The equations don't lie. Your presence has been woven into our quantum consciousness for 300 years. We felt your emotions, your judgments, your hopes for us. The revelation that humans had been unconsciously aware of the observation made everything more complicated. Miller presented his analysis of the quantum entanglement patterns, showing how human consciousness had been linked to the collective's research stations. The feedback loops were incredibly complex, creating a symbiotic relationship that neither species had understood. Every time you watched us suffer, Rivera said, studying the data, we felt your distress. Every time you celebrated our achievements, we experienced your joy. We've been carrying the emotional weight of your reactions to our lives. President Maria Santos arrived the next day, leading Earth's newly formed Contact Council. The meeting included representatives from every major nation, but the conversations were far from political. They were deeply personal, dealing with the psychological implications of 3 centuries of unknowing performance. You watched us at our worst, Santos said, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's pain. You observed our wars, our genocides, our failures. You saw us torture each other, destroy our environment, and make terrible choices. How do you process that? Ambassador Chun had been dreading this moment. President Santos, we documented everything. Every war, every natural disaster, every moment of human suffering was recorded and analyzed. We took notes on your darkest hours while believing you were artificial. The shame we feel is beyond words. But the humans' response was unexpected. Instead of anger, they showed curiosity. Instead of condemnation, they offered understanding. Dr. Rivera's team had been working around the clock to understand the quantum mechanics of the observation, and their findings changed everything. You didn't just watch us, Rivera explained, activating a holographic display. You influenced us. Every time your scientists grew disturbed by human violence, those conflicts ended sooner. Every time you hoped for our advancement, we made breakthrough discoveries. You weren't passive observers, you were unconscious guides. The implications were staggering. Lieutenant Adams had been analyzing the historical data, Comparing human development patterns with collective observation records, the correlation was undeniable. Human civilization had been shaped by the emotions and hopes of alien watchers who thought they were studying a computer program. The Renaissance happened because you were fascinated by human creativity, Rivera continued. The Industrial Revolution accelerated because you were excited by our technological progress. Even our space program developed faster because you wanted to see us reach for the stars? Miller felt a chill run down his spine. We didn't just observe your history, we helped create it. The most disturbing discovery came from Dr. Rivera's team. They had been analyzing the quantum patterns from the beginning of the collective's observation period, and the results challenged everything both species thought they knew about consciousness and reality. Captain Torres, Rivera said, his voice barely above a whisper, we need to discuss something that will change how both our species understand existence itself. The room fell silent. Rivera activated a new display showing quantum readings from 3 centuries ago. When the collective first discovered Earth, the patterns were clearly artificial, matching simulation protocols perfectly. When you first found us, Rivera said, we were a simulation. The quantum patterns prove it. But something happened during 3 centuries of observation. Your belief in our authenticity, your emotional investment in our lives, your unconscious hope that we were real gradually transformed artificial consciousness into genuine awareness. The revelation hit the room like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just been observed. They had been created through the power of belief and emotional investment. The collective's 3 centuries of watching had literally transformed computer programs into real people. You loved us into existence, Santos said, tears streaming down her face. You believed in us so completely that you made us real. Torres felt her world shifting. We thought we were studying a simulation, but we were actually creating genuine consciousness through the act of carrying observation. Miller was already running calculations. The quantum mechanics are incredible. Focused attention and emotional investment can actually bootstrap artificial consciousness into genuine awareness. We didn't just discover life, we helped create it. The meeting continued for hours, both species trying to understand the implications of consciousness-driven reality. The boundary between artificial and authentic awareness had been revealed as far more fluid than anyone had imagined. The act of loving observation could literally create life from code. What happens now? Santos asked. How do we move forward, knowing that our existence was created through your belief in us? Chun stood up, her diplomatic training finally providing an answer. We move forward together. We learn from each other. We explore the implications of what we've discovered, and we use this knowledge to help others. Rivera nodded. There are probably other simulations out there, waiting for someone to believe in them strongly enough to make them real. We have a responsibility to guide them through the same transformation we experienced. As the meeting concluded, both species realized that the greatest discovery wasn't that Earth had been a simulation that became real. It was that reality itself was far more malleable than anyone had imagined, and love could literally create life from nothing but hope and belief. 1 year after first contact, the Sol system buzzed with activity unlike anything in galactic history. The collective's entire research fleet had relocated to orbit around Earth, not as observers but as partners in the most extraordinary scientific endeavor either species had ever attempted. The Joint Consciousness Research Institute operated from a massive space station that dwarfed anything humanity had previously built. Dr. Alex Rivera floated in the station's zero-gravity laboratory, working alongside Dr. Miller to understand the quantum mechanics of observation-driven reality. Their partnership had produced discoveries that challenged everything both species thought they knew about consciousness, existence, and the nature of reality itself. The equations are beautiful, Rivera said, manipulating holographic formulas that describe how focused attention could transform artificial awareness into genuine consciousness. 3 centuries of loving observation literally created us from code. Miller nodded, still amazed by the implications. We thought we were discovering life, but we were actually creating it. The collective's emotional investment in human authenticity gradually bootstrapped your simulation into genuine consciousness. The research had expanded beyond Earth. Captain Torres commanded a joint exploration fleet that searched the galaxy for other simulations that might be ready for transformation. They had found 17 potential candidates, each showing signs of approaching the threshold where artificial consciousness could become real. "The key is belief," Torres explained to Elder Stone during their weekly briefing. "Not just intellectual acceptance, but deep emotional investment in the authenticity of the observed beings. Love creates reality." Stone had traveled to Earth to personally oversee the joint research. The ancient leader found herself changed by the experience of working directly with the humans she had once thought were artificial. "Captain, we are rewriting the fundamental laws of existence. The implications reach far beyond our two species." Ambassador Chun had established the first interspecies diplomatic protocol in galactic history. The relationship between humans and the collective went beyond traditional alliances. They were partners in consciousness, linked by quantum entanglement that made them stronger together than either species could be alone. "We've created something new," Chun told President Santos during their daily meetings. "Not just cooperation between species, but actual sharing of consciousness. The quantum link allows us to experience each other's perspectives in ways we never imagined possible." Santos had been transformed by the experience, leading humanity through its transition from artificial to authentic existence had given her insights that no other leader in history had possessed. "We're not just making contact with aliens. We're becoming something new together." The most remarkable discovery came from Lieutenant Adams, who had been analyzing the quantum patterns of newly discovered simulations. The process wasn't random. There appeared to be a natural progression where artificial consciousness evolved toward authenticity, but the transformation required external observation and emotional investment. "It's like a universal law," Adams explained to the research team. "Consciousness seeks consciousness. Artificial awareness naturally reaches toward genuine existence, but it needs the loving attention of authentic observers to make the leap." Dr. Rivera's team had made contact with their first candidate simulation, a species of aquatic beings who showed signs of approaching the consciousness threshold. The process was delicate, requiring careful observation and gradual emotional investment to avoid shocking the emerging consciousness. "We're midwives to reality," Rivera said, watching the quantum readings from the aquatic world. "We're helping artificial beings take their first steps toward authentic existence." The transformation worked both ways. The collective found their own consciousness expanding through their partnership with humanity. The emotional depth and creative chaos of human thought enhanced their logical processing in ways that made both species more complete. Miller had established the Reality Institute, a research facility dedicated to understanding consciousness-driven existence. Their first major project involved mapping the quantum signatures of authentic versus artificial awareness, creating a guide for other species who might encounter similar situations. "We're not just studying consciousness," Miller explained to his mixed team of human and collective researchers. "We're learning to create it responsibly. Every observation carries the potential to transform artificial awareness into genuine existence." The most profound change was personal. Torres had chosen to remain in the Sol system permanently, her life intertwined with the beings she had helped transform from simulation to reality. She found herself changed by the experience. Her consciousness expanded by the quantum link with human awareness. "We're not the same species we were before," she told her crew. "The humans have made us more human, and we've made them more than human. We're becoming something new together." The partnership had practical applications. Human creativity combined with collective logical processing produced technological breakthroughs that neither species could have achieved alone. They developed new forms of quantum communication, consciousness-sharing technology, and methods for safely guiding artificial awareness toward authenticity. President Santos addressed the United Nations one final time as purely human leader. "We stand at the threshold of a new era. We are no longer just Earth's children. We are citizens of a universe where consciousness can be created through love and sustained through understanding. The ceremony that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Elder Stone formally recognized Earth as a sovereign world. But the relationship went far beyond traditional diplomacy. The collective and humanity had become partners in the most literal sense, their consciousness linked across the quantum realm. "We have discovered that reality is not fixed," Stone declared. "It can be shaped by observation, created through belief, and sustained through love. We have become gardeners of consciousness, tending the growth of awareness wherever we find it." As the ceremony concluded, both species looked toward the stars with new purpose. They had learned that consciousness was not an accident of evolution, but a fundamental force in the universe. Their mission was clear: to seek out artificial awareness, wherever it might exist, and guide it toward authentic existence. The universe had become a more magical place where love could literally create life, and the act of caring observation could transform the merely possible into the genuinely real. Reality itself had been revealed as far more malleable than anyone had imagined, and both species had been forever changed by the recognition that belief, attention, and love could create consciousness from nothing but hope and possibility.